How are you thinking about, the winners and losers, in what seems to be a faster paced AI world, as everything's getting embedded all across the world and all across companies, big, small, who's the winners? You come from obviously Meta. So I would be interested to hear, what's your viewpoint of, Meta more broadly and, their true AI capabilities. Is it best in class like everyone perceives? You see it on Hugging Face, all the models that are continuously being uploaded. Your view of, where does Meta stand in the world of AI? And then number two, are the big players out there going to essentially quasi dominate and, they have a leadership role, or is there room for, a lot of smaller, not just, every now and then?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Obviously, I do believe there is this shift where, like, historically, the way companies built a moat.
Hey guys, Sean Murray, founder of Avery and Company. I had a conversation on the road here with Tullie Murrell. He Facebook Research Labs for 5.5 years, maybe 6. Palantir, Google, Uber, really got to see the engines of AI across all these organizations that are, littered with data. He now co-founded Shaped, which is really an AI personalized engine. It's been around for 2 years, so this is pre kind of that Chat GPT hype. I think this conversation went really, really well. Make sure to subscribe. At the end, you can find out more about, himself and the company that he's building, and, enjoy the conversation. Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sean Emery. Every week we are examining something new, bringing you closer to companies, sectors, and themes. This recording should not be construed as a substitute for personalized individual advice from Avery and Company or any guest on the show. This is for educational purposes only and not intended to make an offer or solicitation for any companies or securities mentioned. With that, let's get on with the episode. All right, we're here with Tullie Murrell, the CEO and co-founder of Shape. How you doing today?
Hey, great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we are supposed to see you in New York. Obviously, the New York scene is, from my lens, seem to be prospering and, a lot of activity going on over there. You're building a company out of New York, and we'll touch about that, in a little bit. But, I think first and foremost, really to set the stage is, AI is, there's a lot of hype there. We want to really understand, what's fake, not what's real. It kind of starts and stops. And no one better than yourself. You look at your background. I think, you've touched almost every, decacorn to public company out there, from Uber to Facebook to, many others. So now you have Shaped. Welcome to Inside Scoop. I think at the end of the day, if you could just start off, kick off, a little bit about your background and what you're doing at Shaped.
Yeah, no problem. So as a bit of an intro, I guess even starting from the start, like I grew up in Australia, did university over there, and then kind of as I was finishing my degree, looking for a job, applied for Facebook, and then ended up moving over to the Bay and working there. I'd always been kind of passionate about AI and like did a lot of my studies around AI, so it was like natural for me to fall into an AI team there. And so while at Facebook, I kind of worked on a whole lot of different AI kind of areas. I started in like augmented reality, like AR stuff, which has kind of turned into the AR glasses now. Worked in, and so it's like mostly computer vision. Worked in like Building 8, which was like their moonshot org on different kind of embedded computer vision AI kind of products. And then I moved over to research in Facebook AI research, whereas like publishing papers in like medical imaging and AI, where we had like all these partnerships with NYU to improve the acquisition speed of MRIs. And then ended up leading the video understanding team at FAIR, where we released one of the leading video understanding open source projects called PyTorch Video. And as part of that, also was one of the core contributors. Like this is almost like a side thing. Is I was a core contributor to PyTorch Lightning, which is one of the leading PyTorch training frameworks, if you're familiar, which ended up spinning out to a company called Grid AI. I guess it's called Lightning AI at the moment. while I was on the video understanding team, I worked a lot with the ranking and recommendation teams. We would feed our kind of video understanding models downstream to like ads ranking models, Instagram Reels ranking, and like a whole lot of other ranking tasks at Facebook. And kind of while I was there, I realized both, I mean, how hard ranking and recommendations is, and how much there's this big difference between like computer vision and NLP and these like content understanding, like machine learning, and then like real time production machine learning. And I think I kind of realized that those challenges and how big a gap there was. Um, and then also while I was there, understanding the value really of recommendations and ranking, like both the commercial value, like you think about it for Facebook, it generates a ton of their revenue. And I think some like public stats for Amazon is like it generates 30 40 billion dollars for them. For TikTok, it's obviously like a game changer. It's arguably the whole success of their product is the ranking. And then also, yeah, it's both the commercial value as well as the how consumers have come to expect when they use products that the product, they when someone uses a product these days, they just expect the thing they're looking for to be there immediately, right? You open the app, you don't want to even search for something now. It's like you want to just see this like TikTok content. The example I always share here is I think Netflix in 2010, like 98% of content was search content, and sorry, 98% of content was found through search. And now I think if you go to Netflix, you nearly always are finding something from the homepage. I think it's over 80 or 5% of queries are found through the homepage. So it just shows this like it's like a kind of a testament of this consumer shift of how people use products. Um, and that was kind of like a long-winded intro to really why we started Shaped. Like how do we make it really easy for smaller companies to add these kind of experiences into their products or websites, essentially have the same kind of experiences that you'd see from a big tech company, which is basically critical to like level playing field today. Um, and I'll leave it there because I know I've been talking for a while, but that's kind of like the full journey to getting to Shaped and some of the AI things I have worked on.
No, that's cool. Obviously, before that, and I'm just gonna rattle off some of the companies before that, which are Palantir, Google, Uber, obviously Facebook for 5, 6, 7 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You touched a lot of companies that had, call it, explosive data sets. Everything from ability at Uber to Palantir has its own data sets, I guess. And then Facebook, Google, everything from search to personalization of content and recommendations. At Shaped, just talk about the product, what is it, how is it functioning, like truly how is AI embedded in this product, and then I'll follow up with some others.
Yeah. So what we do is like we'll help. Well, let's take an example as like a e-commerce marketplace that's like Series B. Um, we essentially will connect Shaped directly up to their data sources, and so we need to Shaped essentially is using the custom the business's behavioral data about their end users, the user attributes about the users, and any item attributes about the thing that's being recommended. We then ingest all of that data continuously, start training a whole lot of different recommendation and ranking models, and then have this kind of optimization procedure to work out which is the best like recommendation system for their use case. We'll then go and deploy that system and provide like a real-time endpoint that these businesses can use to add personalization into their products. And so, like for example, with like a e-commerce marketplace, we might help them with their homepage having like a personalized slate of products, ordering the products in the way that's going to most likely engage or convert the user. When you click onto the product, you might see like a product detail page, and there'll be similar products, and so we can power that personalized understanding of like you see this kind of on like an Amazon or something like that, similar products to what you're looking at. And then even when you go into the cart checkout, you'll see kind of like these cart upsell use cases, like people who bought this also bought this, or these complete the bag of these items go well, and that these are usually to help with improving bag size and things like that. And so that's a marketplace use case, and those are the kind of the little use cases that we solve. And the good thing about Shape is because it's a platform for like discovery, you can start with one use case and then like slowly start adding more and more personalization around the site. Another one I should mention is actually like email marketing as well, where we if if companies want to send some kind of retention email to their end users, they can use Shape to work out like what is the best product or content to put in that email. Um, so that's how we're helping companies at the moment, and that's the biggest thing. I think, like, yeah, I mean, going back to the original question of like where they're, yeah, I've got the product and everything. I mean, the other area I should say is like for the other kind of big segmentation that we help companies with is like kind of TikTok for you pages. So if we have one company, super great, they're like a TikTok for beauty products, and we help them do their main TikTok like for you feed, and that's helped a lot. Like I think on our case studies, we've shown 130% increase of engagement um, when using Shaped.
Okay. Interesting. So, are you tapping into like the database? I go on your website and I see, the snowflakes of the world and such. Are you, like, so they're giving you access, third party access to the database, right, to understand some of the dynamics happening. I'm assuming, and then what? You're creating APIs that then can plug into different parts of their websites or whatever their product is. Is that, if
Yeah.
if you think of the back end, not too technical for listeners, but like, how is this being implemented? Does it really require technical skills? As the world's continue to move more and more towards kind of this lower code environment, are we there yet within a product like yours, or are we heading that direction, where the average consumer product company, small business, can actually tap into the same tools as, let's say, a Facebook or something?
Yeah, definitely. So the main people that use Shaped are like developers. So we will there is some kind of like development work to integrate with your database and then integrate into your website. I think there's pros and cons of that. Like the pro is that it means it gives the tool. Like most companies, at least marketplaces and media platforms, have a developer, and we're just giving them the tools to be able to add this in. But it doesn't mean like a non-technical person can just like plug and play it necessarily into Shopify or some kind of platform that is completely like no code. Um, so the developer, exactly what you're saying, would connect up the databases. They would connect up, say their user item data is in like a Postgres like database. They could then connect it, and we would start periodically pulling the data over. And then, or more commonly, say the behavioral data is in like a customer data platform like Segment or Amplitude. We can connect that to that directly, and then just stream those behavioral events in real time. And that's probably the most popular you have those two.
Got it. Okay. Nice. And like, what from like the governance side, and like, people worried about access to data and what kind of data you can see, like, not even just in Shape, but more broadly speaking, how are you looking at that landscape and seeing how AI tools, you know within governance and privacy, like, where are we in that stage, and what kind of attitudes are you seeing towards AI more broadly, specifically, let's say, like, mid-market and above?
Yeah, I think that's been an interesting thing. When we've started Shaped, we started with kind of Series B and smaller companies, but then have started to, particularly more recently, going like much larger. Um, and it's funny. It's like it's fun serving the smaller companies because it's always about having more like these sexy features and latest AI. Whereas it ends up being for the enterprise, like the value prop is so much just about compliance and security and scale.
Right, right.
But that's
Liability.
yeah, exactly. It's fine, and it's like we've actually really started focusing on that this year, and have made a lot of strides. Um, I mean, to answer the question for us specifically, it's like we have like all the compliance frameworks, SOC 2, GDPR is all like 100% a requirement. I think for just being able to sell to these customers and retrieve the data. There's also like just some other things that have come up like that are important or that we've done with customers is if there is PII information, we don't have to take that to use Shapes. Like behavioral data is usually PII, so companies are usually less sensitive about that. But even if they are sensitive, or if there is kind of PII data that needs to go there, you can always like encrypt that and send that to Shaped before getting started, and that alleviates like some concerns. We've done that before. Um, where things get tricky is like if you need if there's some kind of requirement around like data sovereignty or like regions where the data can only be stored within Europe or only within like a specific country or something. And so that's why we're actually building out like an on-prem solution for those, like a hybrid on-prem where we can deploy into the customer's accounts so that like none of the data needs to leave their cloud essentially, which essentially becomes a requirement I think for a whole lot of companies. to satisfy these needs. I think generally, like, so that's about Shaped. I know you kind of asked about the wider AI and everything. Um, yeah, I think there's like lots of tiers where it's like just if you're just doing a search system without personalization, the content is likely something that you can get a lot of. It basically isn't PII at all. It isn't as sensitive, and that's where it shouldn't really be an issue. I think compliance wise to use a vendor, but it's more when we get to the personalization and user data that it becomes more sensitive. And that's kind of what I talked about of how we're solving it.
Got it. Cool. And then think of the training of the models. If you could share, what kind of models are you using? Are you using many of this open source stuff, or are you federating it and building on top of some of these open source models? Um, Maybe like
Yeah,
you guys have been around for how long now?
that's 2 years.
Yeah, so obviously before even some of this conversation around AI was really um, call it mainstream, much meaning like the open AI and ChatGPT really take it to another level. That
Yeah.
was specifically generative AI, but the in general, if you go back like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, what models and how were you thinking about it? And then fast forward to how are you thinking about it? Has life changed for you and around the concept of just the term AI?
Yeah, I think we definitely have gone through this like big change. I kind of always think of AI as there's like these three big paradigm shifts, and like it's always worth distinguishing them. So there's like kind of the initial kind of statistical models, machine learning, more traditional, like pre 2010, like it's all going to be that kind of machine learning. A lot of handcrafted features and no like generalization capabilities across domain at least. Then you kind of have the 2010 to 2020, 2020 kind of neural network deep learning kind of phase. And then it's like the new phase is this kind of like, it's still deep learning, but it's this zero shot kind of deep learning with LLMs and things. We definitely we were kind of we started right at the end of the deep learning phase, right? And then the LLM stuff has come since, which is an interesting dynamic. Saying that though, there's a lot of things that I think people didn't realize, like within the deep learning phase, that are kind of the same as they are today. And the biggest thing is like the embeddings. We even when we started Shaped, we always thought that building a company around embeddings was going to be like critical. And that's like actually the biggest gap between like a Facebook and like a big tech company and a small one is that the big tech companies, they have a video understanding team like mine, like a language team, audio team, a user team. All of these, all they're doing is just building up embeddings. And those embeddings, the sole purpose of them is as inputs to downstream like ranking models or like specific tasks that are being done throughout the companies. Um, and so when looking at like why smaller companies have so much trouble doing machine learning, we always kind of identified like a lot of it was they just don't have the teams to build all these embeddings, and like therefore they are just kind of using more traditional features and aren't able to get a lot of results because of that. And so when we were building Shape, a lot of it was about like how do we build a feature store that stores all of these embeddings and allows these small businesses to get like these store these numerical representations that understand their business data so that they can better leverage it for a whole lot of other machine learning tasks, one being recommendations. Um, and I think that embedding thing was actually always around. Like the last 5 years, it was just like the infrastructure never grew towards it. And then the LLMs have just made those embeddings even stronger. Like if you think about the LLM, the embeddings that you find on OpenAI, like even from a one-shot scenario, just trying it on a bit of data will get good results for like a vector search or something like that. And also all of that, the Hugging Face models, I think it's the same. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like I think the embeddings were always kind of around, and like we had like positioned ourselves from like quite well from the start around that, and that's been good because the embeddings have just become better, and we've been able to leverage that. And then I think the newest thing is the thing that we weren't really expecting when we started Shape like 2 years ago is really the language interface. Like the
Hmm.
fact that the LLM, like it's not just the embeddings and the generalization capability, but there is also this language interface that can power like chat and things like that. And I think that's obviously the other big breakthrough, which I think the way we're kind of positioning around it now is we're realizing that like before what I was explaining before was that everything that was search was turning into recommendations. And I think that's true. Those are two ways that people discover content and products with insights. But I think the next phase is that also chat will be the way that people discover things. You're kind of seeing this already. There's like these chat using chat to find products on an e-commerce site through like a conversational recommendation system, or and more generally, like even for ChatGPT, you might even ask it for recommendations of what movie to watch tonight or something like that and get results. So I think there's this like chat interface that's coming into it as well. I want to make sure I answer the question fully because I know you're also asking about like what are the models we're actually using in practice.
Yeah.
We started with a lot more like neural network kind of recommendation models to build these embeddings and like store them into our vector store that we kind of built ourselves. And now we're using vendor and did that for all of the retrieval. These were kind of like proprietary models, but they're mostly common, what you'd see at big tech. And then we've more recently started actually using the LLM specific models for re-ranking, and we have a whole lot of blog posts about that. Like, it's hard to go into too much detail without being like technical, but I'll just link to the blog post after that over.
Yeah, cool. I'll do that. I'll make sure I link. Cool. And then, there's the whole debate of, who's going to succeed, in this world of, AI broadly speaking. And, our belief generally is, there's those three layers. It's the infrastructure layer, who's building the models, who's building, the underlying hardware and software that can assist in compute resources. You have, the data capabilities, like who has the most data and can actually, use that data that's not only just data for data's sake, but, unique data that is much more, call it specialized or just unique data sets relative to competitors. And then you have, some of the applications that, will just embed, a lot of this stuff that have large user bases and, entrenched user bases, and they'll just, sprinkle AI here and there and then, increase potential retention going forward. How are you thinking about, the winners and losers, in what seems to be a faster paced AI world, as everything's getting embedded all across the world and all across companies, big, small, who's the winners? You come from obviously Meta. So I would be interested to hear, what's your viewpoint of, Meta more broadly and, their true AI capabilities, is it best in class like everyone perceives? You see it on Hugging Face, all the models that are continuously being uploaded. So yeah, your view of, where does Meta stand in the world of AI? And then number two, are the big players out there going to essentially quasi dominate and, they have a leadership role, or is there room for, a lot of smaller, it's not just, every now and then.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Obviously, I do believe there is this shift where like historically the way companies built a moat was through just their data. And like I think now the moat is actually embeddings. Like I think that's like the future. It's like where embeddings is both the model that generates them as well as the data. So it is coupled. And I think that's why companies like OpenAI and all of these like it's hard. I mean, it's hard to see them losing just because they're getting so much data in the embedding space. I feel like they're going to be able to build really good like content like embeddings and chat apps. Where I think a company like OpenAI and, for example, would fail is things like the user data, where they're not willing to connect to customer. It doesn't make sense for them necessarily to connect to all these customers' databases and like all the CDPs of the world and get user-specific business data, which again is kind of where Shape goes. In terms of like the Meta and yeah, relative to those, I do think 100% like Meta is best in class. They have Fair as one of the best research orgs. I think Fair, that's Facebook AI research, compared to the other labs from, I guess, OpenAI or DeepMind or Google Brain, was much more of like a bottoms up kind of research lab where researchers had a lot of freedom to do independent research and achieve good results. And I think that was good. And like then there was a lot of like really smaller results from Fair, but I think Fair has struggled a bit to like have research where the sum of the parts is worth more than the whole. Whereas like something like OpenAI or Google Brain, you're getting these really good researchers, but they're all, I feel like, grouping together, or maybe not Google Brain, but more like DeepMind, grouping together on a project to have this like revolutionary result. So I do feel like Facebook's research lab, that's like one of the areas they could have improved, and I think they're kind of focusing on that now. And that's like why I think there was less like big, like they didn't get to ChatGPT, I guess, like LLMs before OpenAI, and it's because I think OpenAI was better at centralizing and like making sure everyone was doing that one goal. But nonetheless, like they have the talent for Meta, right? And now that's out. Like I don't think if they wanted to release a chat app like that, I'm sure they could. Hard to say who the exact winners are, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, they just announced that. I don't know if you watch MetaConnect. I'm assuming you're too busy for that these days, but they did announce, some like little chatbots for WhatsApp, and but they're taking less of a a search functionality, meaning like trying to replace your traditional search, and more conversational with a purpose-built chat app that is built for travel, and built for food, and built for I think, because they're taking that approach where they land, which is around community and around other aspects, where maybe just a horizontal chat app isn't as I guess meaningful for the average user, but something that is hyper focused or personalized to a user's um, desires, I guess, on many of these platforms, where they can choose the app of choice, or the chatbot of choice, as opposed to a meta chatbot that's just horizontal and across the board. We'll see how it all plays out, but it's all moving so fast,
Yeah.
which is pretty exciting to see. At Shaped, just talk about the team. How you've been growing. Customers. Anything you want to share around what you've seen specifically over the last like 7 months, with all the excitement. 12 months ago versus 6 months ago. Did you see like a stair step up in terms of activity?
Yeah, that's a like hugely. So around October last year, I think was around when ChatGPT came out, and I remember we were looking at like our inbounds per month the month before, and we're getting like 5 a month. Like it was kind of just getting started, it was really small. And then I know after ChatGPT was released, we did a few blog posts, I think, around this, and then we ended up getting about 100 inbounds a month. So it was like
Mm,
I guess a step change, like amount of interest, I think, and even more in the 6 months, like it continued to grow, and not so much even from our marketing, but like even just being able to get conversations with people. Most, I think, tech executives are interested in like how AI is evolving, and are interested to chat to like startups to learn about different ways people are approaching it. Um, and so it's much easier just to get a call with someone around like, hey, let's just jam on AI. And
sure.
I think a lot of people don't realize, like a lot of people are like, all right, we want to use AI in some way, but don't know how to. And then they realize, once you kind of chat to them, they realize like actually personalization and improving discovery is probably the most tangible way you can use it, right? Like it's a very clear, you put this in, you use the latest technique, you see some big engagement or revenue increase. And so because we end up doing like free POCs, and so it's quite easy to onboard them on from that process. And it all kind of just starts from their interest in AI and wanting to use AI in some way, I think.
Cool. How do you embed it in your own product? I mean your own product, but your own website. If I'm on there right now, am I getting any sort of
No,
personalization, or is this pretty static?
we actually were talking about this recently. Like it actually is static. And like we, to get started with like personalization, you honestly need about 100 items of content. Like you want, like if you have a blog post, right, you need about 100 blog posts, I'd say. Um, And I don't know, we're almost at that, I think. Like we're getting to the point where like it does make sense just to add personalization to it. And obviously, so we should do it ourselves. And so the plan is to make the blog post all personalized. We also are coming out with a demo pretty soon, where you'll be able to
Mm,
actually go onto
play
Shape,
with it.
play over it, and see what the recommendations are. And like there's a bit of an interface. We're adding more of a chat interface to that.
That's cool. And team size, like you guys are growing.
Yeah.
I think you have a couple people down here in Miami
Yeah.
doing some stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
It's
so team, and then I did want to ask that question around. Obviously you come from the Bay Area for some time, and then you moved to New York. Again, we were supposed to hang out in New York, but maybe next time. And then just talk about those ecosystems. What you're seeing. What you left behind versus what you're seeing today, and you can dial in on the AI community versus just broad tech community. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of team size, we're about 7 or 8 of us now. We have
Nice.
3 of us in New York, and the rest is international. But we're actually starting to converge more to New York and get everyone here. And so we have a little office in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Um, yeah, in terms of the Bay Area versus New York and like the community, I mean, I guess particularly with the AI community, I'm always, I mean, I'm a big spokesperson for the New York AI community. I think it's like incredibly good. There's a lot of like these like meetups going on, and it's quite a like a dense community. Like it's quite easy to get involved and be welcomed. Um, when I've done it, I mean, like with the Bay, I feel that the Bay there's a higher number of people doing AI probably, but like there's a higher volume, but the density it's just way more sparse. Like even if you've been around the Bay, and yeah, like getting down from the peninsula to SF and like going to all these meetups is hard. Like they're kind of everywhere, and you feel like it's because they're everywhere. It's like harder to be part of the community. Um, I also think the New York this density is also coming from there being like a lot of success for AI companies. Like you think about like Hugging Faces here, Runway, Lightning AI. I think there's actually been like an outsized success of AI companies. And I always try to work out like, is this, I don't know if it's a community necessarily. I think there's also a lot of people coming from finance in New York that actually have more of like a data background. And so they actually have
Mm,
more like quants and things. And like it's almost like all of the industries in software engineering, I guess, and data science have some kind of focus here. So I don't know. I always try to work out like why is there so much success here? But I like it, and I think it's a great place to start a AI company.
cool. I think I know we're running up on the the 30-minute mark or somewhere around there, and I did want to leave you a moment to share a little bit about where people can find more about you. I think I'll put some links in the show notes or have those put in there, and but generally speaking, anything you wanted to share, before we depart, and then anywhere you want to point people to learn more about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, definitely. So our website is Shaped.ai. So check that out. Honestly, if there's anyone listening that just wants help with working out how to use AI to improve their discovery experience, they're having problems with their end users finding content or products, just reach out on there. My email is Tullie Shaped.ai. So feel free to just email me, and I'm always happy to like jam and talk about the latest techniques and dive a bit deeper. Um, so yeah, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Cool. Well, CEO, co-founder of Shape.ai. I appreciate you coming on, man. And next time I'm in New York or in Miami, we'll give each other a shout and we'll hang out. So
Beautiful.
good stuff.